Well, here we are once again, Andy, going on a timeless adventure.
Yes, the 11th one in a row.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I'm finding I'm getting more kind of into the backstory than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really anxious to see how it's all going to go about.
Yeah, and I think we only have 5 episodes left in this season. Is it 16 episodes?
I think so. I think so.
Well, I assume you were going to ask me if there was anything interesting I've watched on TV the past week. The only thing we've just been keeping up on Severance. We've got the next episode. We watch the episodes on Fridays, and so we've got the next one coming up on Friday. But this Friday, we're going to do a Severance party when we watch the episode. There's a thing in the series that there's a waffle party at one point in the show, and so we're going to do our own waffle party with the kids and then watch the episode.
I see.
Yeah,
well, that'll be fun.
So we're excited about that. But yeah, other than that, nothing new, I guess. What about you?
Not really. I've just been doing stuff around the house and taking care of business.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of new TV type viewing at all, or movies. I'm still waiting for a good movie to come to the theaters.
Yes.
And this first quarter of the year is usually, it's a slow time for movies.
Yeah. Although usually when the Oscars happen, I get all excited about, what movies are nominated for the Oscars. And then I'm trying to catch up and, watch some of the nominees for the next couple months. But
right.
I'm so out of touch this time that I'm completely out of the loop.
I don't know if I was as much out of touch with the Oscars as I just flat out didn't care.
I know. It's kind of sad that I've kind of felt
that it's gotten to this.
Years,
yeah.
So, yeah. Kind of.
Well, how about we do something a little more interesting?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's dive into episode 11 of Timeless. It's called The World's Columbian Exposition.
Which I just have to say that title was not like it didn't excite me. It's not like a really enticing title. It's I don't know. It sounds really
you're
boring,
probably like
but
me.
I liked the episode. I liked the episode way more than I expected I would.
Right, but you're probably like me. World's Columbian Exposition. Yeah, let me Google that and see. And then it made sense. Well, let's jump into it. The episode starts with Wyatt and Rufus returning to Mason Industries. You remember last time we said this I was kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, and they kind of a two-part story.
Yeah. And they tell everybody that Flynn took Lucy in the mothership. Gia tells them that Flynn is all over the place. He jumped to the present, then he jumped back to 1780. And in the present, Lucy is at a computer in Flynn's hideout. The mothership appears and Flynn gets out. He said he went back to kill Rittenhouse and the boy, but he couldn't get at them. He demands that Lucy find information on young John Rittenhouse and where he is a few years later. Lucy says there's no record of the boy anywhere. Flynn says that he'll then just have to eliminate members of Rittenhouse one at a time.
At Mason Industries, Gia says Flynn jumped again, this time to Illinois, May 30th, 1893. Rufus says that's when the Chicago World's Fair opened. In 1893, Flynn, Lucy, and one of Flynn's thugs appear in Chicago. Flynn tells Lucy there's going to be a meeting between Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, and J.P. Morgan. He says he's going to kill them all because they are a part of Rittenhouse. At Mason Industries, Connor Mason is examining the recorder Rufus took on their last trip. The recording is blank because Rufus erased it. Connor says Rufus is in a lot of trouble and should run away. He even offers to get Rufus a new identity. Rufus says he's not going anywhere until they find Lucy.
So Wyatt and Rufus take off in the lifeboat for 1893. At the fair, they spot Flynn's henchman, and they follow him into a hotel. It's the World's Fair Hotel. At a restaurant, Flynn tells Lucy that Edison, Ford, and Morgan are going to meet in a heavily guarded room. He plans to plant a bomb in the room before they arrive. Lucy refuses to help him until Flynn tells her that he has sent Wyatt and Rufus to the World's Fair Hotel, which is also known as the Murder Castle. It's owned by H.H. Holmes, the first man to be labeled a serial killer. Flynn reminds her that the hotel was a death trap with trap doors, acid vats, and torture rooms.
Flynn tells Lucy if she wants to save Wyatt and Rufus, she will find someone who can get him into the room where Edison, Ford, and Morgan are going to meet. Lucy takes Flynn to see a performance by Harry Houdini at the fair. In the hotel, Wyatt bumps into a woman named Sophia, who is carrying several rolled-up blueprints. When he helps her carry things into her room, they are both gassed and pass out. At the fair, Lucy volunteers to assist Houdini with one of his escapes. After the show, Lucy tricks Houdini into going with Flynn.
Well, Wyatt wakes up in a sealed room with Rufus, Sophia, and a man named George Henry. The woman says she's an architect, and the room is soundproof and airtight. Meanwhile, Flynn, Lucy, and Houdini get to the building where the meeting will take place, and Houdini picks a lock to let Flynn and himself inside. When they get into the room, where they get to the room where the meeting will be, they find it has multiple locks. Houdini climbs into a vent and opens the room from the inside. Before Flynn can plant the bomb, Edison, Ford, and Morgan enter the room. Flynn reaches into his coat to get his gun to shoot them, but Houdini has picked his pocket and taken the gun. Houdini points the gun at Flynn, and he's also handcuffed Flynn to a cabinet.
Outside, Lucy and Flynn's thug are waiting. Houdini comes up behind the thug and knocks him unconscious. Lucy persuades Houdini to go with her to the hotel and help get Wyatt and Rufus. Inside the soundproof room, the gas lamp goes out. They are running out of air. When one of the Pinkerton men unlocks Flynn's handcuffs, Flynn overpowers and kills them. In the sealed room, Sophia notices that one of the bricks in the wall is a different material than the rest, and it's deteriorating. She gives Wyatt a pin, and he makes a small hole in the brick. He starts yelling through the hole. Lucy and Houdini hear him, and they open the door to the room.
When Wyatt goes to find H.H. Holmes, Lucy notices some pictures on the wall. She realizes that George is H.H. Holmes. Holmes grabs her and takes her to the basement, where he puts her in an oven. Lucy tries to convince Holmes to let her go, saying she's a psychic, and she tells him things about himself that no one else knows. Now that makes him hesitate. Suddenly, Wyatt and Rufus burst in. They free Lucy. Wyatt asks Holmes why he shouldn't shoot him. Holmes says he'll confess, and he'll tell where all the bodies are buried. Wyatt asks Lucy what really happens. She says Holmes lies about everything. So Wyatt shoots him.
Back at Mason Industries, Rufus records a message for Rittenhouse saying he is done with them and they need to back off or he is gone. And he reminds them that he is the only person who can pilot the time machine. Finally, Wyatt gets a phone call from Flynn, who gives him the name of the person who killed Wyatt's wife. His name is Wes Gilliam, and that he is in San Quentin for 2 other murders. Flynn suggests that Wyatt go back in time and do something to Gilliam's parents. Roll credits. In the next episode, we have the murder of Jesse James.
All right.
What did you think of this episode, Dad?
I thought it was better, a little better than the last one even. There's several several really good points about this one. But I have some weird observations too, but go ahead.
Okay. Let's hear the weird observations.
Well, my first question is, where's Anthony? We haven't seen him since NASA in 1969. What's happened to Anthony?
Yeah. They kind of set that up as like kind of a feeling like that was a big thing, but then I don't know. They just haven't ever gone back to that.
They've never, yeah. Plus, when Flynn takes Lucy back in the mothership to the fair, I can understand that Flynn might have some other period clothes to change into, but how did he happen to have clothes for Lucy?
Good point.
Where'd her outfit come from?
Yeah, he makes pit stops and stops off at stores.
That must be it. Here, let me take you to the haberdashery or swing by my tailor's and get an outfit for you.
Yeah, that is a good point.
Now, when Edison, Ford, and Morgan come into the room, didn't they notice that the door was unlocked and open?
Yeah,
it wasn't open, but it was unlocked.
I thought they were going to meet in like a really secure, guarded place. Or at least that's how it was set up, and then they just kind of walk into this unlocked office with no one around.
And you notice that when Flynn and Houdini break into that room, before they got there were two Pinkerton guards who were there, and they just walked off. What was that about?
I don't know that meeting. I was expecting more out of that meeting. You know what I mean? But I mean, nothing really came of Edison and those. It was just you had that scene and that interaction with them, but then nothing really.
And that was it.
Came from meeting with those characters. But I did think it was really funny him. Flynn getting handcuffed and Houdini stealing his gun. I thought was pretty fun.
Yeah. I have a couple other things to run past you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they're in that sealed, airtight room. The gas light goes out. How come it didn't get dark? And how come gas?
Why didn't I think of that?
How come gas didn't start filling into the room?
From the gas lamp.
From the gas lamp going out, exactly.
I mean, they could have been, but it's a good point that it didn't go dark, and I don't know why I didn't think about that. It must have gotten a little bit darker, but where was the other light coming from?
And the fact that the bad guy was in the room with them, well, he must have had a way to get out, otherwise he would have died. I'm guessing he had the key to open the door from the inside.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. He must have had the key.
But if he wanted to watch them, if he got his kicks out of watching them die, wouldn't he be almost dead as well? I mean,
like
it would have affected him.
Yeah, it would have affected him just as much as them. So how is he? That seems like a pretty stupid, risky thing to do. To just assume that they'll go first, so that then you'll outlive them. I had a moment when I was sort of wondering if he was the killer, and then I kind of wrote it off, and then it turns out at the end that he was. It's like, which that was kind of crazy that he was. I didn't realize. It was a weird thing to think about that guy was the first person labeled as a serial killer, and it just seems like that's such a common thing that we talk about. Yeah. Now.
It reminded me, and I don't know why, of a really stupid movie that I saw years ago, and I mean years ago, about these people who are trapped in an elevator. There's like 4 people trapped in the elevator, and the kicker was one of them was the devil in disguise.
Okay.
Right? And I'm looking at these 4 people in this elevator, and I said to your mom, it's the one who's the sweet little old lady.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the one who was the sweet little old lady, but
yeah, of course. That's funny.
About the bad guy being trapped with people.
So what was that movie? Did the whole movie take place in an elevator?
I don't remember.
I think like a Hitchcock episode or something.
No, it was actually a movie. It might have been on Netflix or something, but I can't remember what it was. I guess I could Google it,
Man,
but I really don't want to revisit it. It was pretty stupid.
Okay. That's how you shoot a low budget movie. The whole thing takes place in an elevator, probably cost you
That's right.
$50.
Okay, two questions for you.
Yeah.
Will there be consequences for Rufus not making the recordings anymore?
I don't know.
I mean,
I was kind of wondering that as well.
Yeah, what's going to happen in the future now that they don't have him doing that?
I don't know. It's either, I guess it'll be curious to kind of see what the fallout of that is, because he's obviously going to stay and keep piloting it. So,
well, yeah,
I don't know. I don't know what they're getting out of these recordings anyway. There's still been no indication of what they're doing with them.
Well, maybe they're trying to keep track of Flynn as well and the interactions, and I have no idea. But my last question, what is Wyatt going to do? He has this information. What is he most likely to do?
Well, I would be pretty skeptical about the information. I mean, if I were in his shoes, I would look into this guy and look into the name and see if you could confirm that it's true. But I definitely would not just take Flynn's word for it that that's your man.
There has to be some evidence. Flynn has to have some evidence that this guy he named was connected with the death of Wyatt's wife.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that he is a murderer, I mean, that doesn't mean he committed that murder.
Yeah, but he's already in prison. But I don't know. It could give Wyatt some closure. But
he could go meet with the guy, and the guy could confess to him, and then Wyatt would know.
Mm-hmm. But I guess what we're supposed to be nervous about, is he actually going to go and try and track down this guy's parents? Because that would be what he wants, I guess, is okay, well, I could get my wife back if I go and take out this guy's parents. Because they said he can't travel back to any point in time where he exists. So he has to go back to a time before Wyatt was born.
And that's what Flynn... that's what Flynn suggested. Go back and do something to the guy's parents.
Yeah, and then he would never lose his wife. But then you're in all sorts of paradox stuff.
Yeah. Well, what struck you from all this?
Just kind of those same things. I think it's interesting now that it's interesting that Flynn gave Wyatt that information, that now he has this name, and what's he going to do with that? It was nice to see Rufus stand up to Rittenhouse at the end and just end the recordings. I just don't know if that's going to come back to bite him or not. I thought there was something about Houdini, the actor. I don't know. I kind of liked watching him. He was a fun character.
Yeah, he was good. He was a good character.
I actually kind of liked that moment when, not that I liked Lucy being in an oven, but I liked her reaction to being in the oven, that she took... That she learned something from Houdini. She seems kind of claustrophobic, but she had been talking to him about how he mentally can handle these escapes. And he told her how, he talked about how fear isn't real, and he just focused on the word escape. And then she used that skill that he talked about for her to handle being in the furnace and to think through it and then pretend to be a psychic. And this was definitely a time when her history, all her history knowledge, really paid off, because she knew all this stuff about H.H. Holmes and could tell him about his life and act like a psychic. I had
an odd little flash when Houdini was explaining fear to her. And well, for one thing, she told him that she doesn't like tight places.
Yeah.
So then she winds up inside the tight spot of the oven. But when he says what he says about fear, I thought, Ooh, maybe Houdini was one of the Bene Gesserit from Dune. Fear is the mind killer.
Yeah, it kind of sounded like that. Yeah, the only
But,
other thing that I had noted about this episode is it was written by Lena Cho, and she also wrote Atomic City. But I think this is the first episode where we've had now this is like a repeat writer.
A repeat writer?
Yeah. There's been all different writers through episode 10, and then it's been all new directors every time though still. But.
Yeah. That the writing part is kind of interesting to me in the sense that you have the overarching story.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody couldn't just out of the blue say, well, I'm going to write a spec script for Timeless and I'm going to send it to them and see what they say, because they won't, as far in advance as things are done, they wouldn't know where the overarching story is by the time their episode would, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would think they have sort of a map of kind of each episode, generally like
right.
What happens.
So if they hire somebody,
this episode will be in this place, this episode will be in this place, and then you just have to kind of work within those boundaries. I think
they've got to give perspective writers, assuming they are perspective writers and not just part of the team.
I would think that they probably on a show like this probably are part of a team. They probably like I want these 10 writers on the show.
Yeah, that's what I would tend to think, because otherwise you'd have to give away a lot of secrets to a prospective writer.
Yeah. But back in like Star Trek or something, that would have been that wouldn't have been necessarily how they did it, right? I mean, maybe they had kind of a key team of writers, but they would take one-off scripts from people and stuff, right?
Yes, they did.
Because it's very you're not necessarily having to fit within
because there was
storyline. It's just
no. To tell you the truth, from what I understand, TV wise, television shows did not have an overarching story until Babylon 5.
That was my impression too. Is that was, if not the first, one of the first to do that.
Yeah, it was.
Which was just, I remember watching it and just thinking that was like the coolest part of the show, and I had never seen anything like that. And
that's when TV started moving away from episodic.
Yeah. And now it's kind of gone. And now a lot of TV has kind of gone that extreme where it is just one kind of long miniseries that is just one continuous story. And there's not, I mean, it depends on the show, but so now,
that's true.
Common, do we have these shorter seasons, like 8 or 9 episodes in a season, and then different than how it used to be where you'd get like 25 or 26.
Well, I'm thinking this episode, I'm going to give this one, I'm up in the 8 category with this one. Several things were advanced.
That's kind of what I was thinking too, probably like an 8. And
you said next one was Jesse
the murder
James.
Of Jesse James. Yeah.
And now I don't know history well enough to know what happened in real life to Jesse James.
Yeah, I don't either.
Might have to look that up before I watch the episode. I guess we'll find out next time. But everything they do is involving Flynn and Rittenhouse.
I've noticed that they're trying to, or they've continued to try to build a little more, I don't know, empathy or something toward Flynn and what he's doing. It'll be kind of interesting by the end of the season to see how we feel about Flynn and his objectives, because clearly the Rittenhouse is bad, or at least that's how it's being set up.
Well, it's like I have a feeling that our team of good guys is becoming a little more, as you say, sympathetic to Flynn, and they're realizing Rittenhouse is not a good bunch.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to see how it all plays out.
I would predict that we're going to see a bit more of yeah, their objectives kind of almost merging, that they're trying to kind of do the same thing that Flynn is trying to do. And that, yeah, I don't know if ultimately they could kind of end up helping each other out, but
the whole thing, though, until I see it to the end, the whole thing still doesn't jive with me about if you're going to get rid of Rittenhouse, you start at the Hindenburg, and then you go here, and then you go forward, and then you go back there, and then what?
No, it feels like a little bit of a wild goose chase. It seems like there's
no real
ways to do this.
No real straight plan of attack here.
Yeah. And it feels like I would doubt that they're going to ever go. Well, I don't know. Maybe John Rittenhouse, the kid, maybe he'll pop up again as an adult. I could see that happening.
Yeah. And maybe in a lot of ways, I hope he does.
Guy. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I would predict that we'll run into him again, and then he's going to be like a real baddie.
Okay. I don't think he's going to be Jesse James, though.
Nope. Guess we'll find out in the next one.
Okay. I will see you then, and we'll dive into it again.
All right. See you then.
That wraps up this episode. Join us again next time here in the TV Lounge.